45 years, 0 name changes, new offices, more staff, improved technology to better serve you. Education, services, investments. Think real estate, think Marshall Reddick. Brokerage, property management, private lending, creating financial independence through real estate since 1979.
Everybody, thank you for joining our event today. My name is Chris Carlson with Marshall Reddick here. I'm also with the esteemed and highly loved colleague, Reed Hazard, who's our preferred lender. He's been working with us for almost 20 years now, and we've got a lot to share with you today. Most specifically, how we're achieving 4.25% to 5.25% interest rate for some new construction properties with our really great relationships with developers all across the country in the various markets that we service. And we're just really excited to show you guys the opportunity that's out there that I don't think anyone else in this market can really do right now. I think this is something that's absolutely unique to Marshall Reddick and to CMG Mortgage, our partnership and lending team. So let's go ahead and get started here. And of course, if you guys have any audio issues or questions or anything, just please type it in the chat. We'll hopefully address that. And we can potentially even get to some questions here at the end of our webinar. A little bit about myself. My name is Chris Carlson. Again, I've been a licensed real estate agent and broker since 2013. So a little over a decade now in the industry. I attended the University of Kansas and figured out real estate was my calling, and helping people achieve financial freedom and independence through real estate. I just think it's such a powerful tool. I'm an investor myself, but in terms of helping clients, I've closed well over 100 real estate sale transactions across multiple states. I've done countless leases. I've worked for tiny little boutique brokerages and property management teams in huge publicly traded firms. But I found myself here at Marshall Reddick, and I really do love kind of being an advocate and a champion of the services that we offer at Marshall Reddick. We do a lot here, and we'll get into a little bit more detail about what we cover. I'm also a mortgage fund investor and single family home investor myself. Well, what is it that we do here? We love to call ourselves a one-stop shop for real estate investors. What that entails is our real estate brokerage, property management division, and private money lending division. From our real estate brokerage perspective, we've got hundreds of transactions under our belt each year with dozens of agents spread across multiple states, all highly experienced and really focused on the investor mindset, which is understanding your criteria, your goals, and what you're trying to accomplish along your journey. And they're the ones that are out there pounding the pavement, looking for the deals that meet that criteria. But I think if you're an investor and you've done this a time or two again, you probably know that when it comes to investing in real estate, maybe 10% of the job is finding the right deal, 90% of it is operating the deal, because really you're buying a business when you buy an investment property. And it's how do you maximize the income and the return on investment? And we strongly believe it's by hiring a property manager that knows how to collect the rents, enforce the leases, and make sure they're staying on top of regulations and compliance with the state, doing all of the accounting for you and making your life a lot easier so you can focus on your job that probably makes you a bit more money day to day than maybe managing a single family home or a multi-family property would. So we have our excellent property management team across all the markets that we operate in. I'm very proud of that. I'm a big advocate of our team, and I think Yelp and Google reviews are a big testament. So after this, I definitely suggest you guys jump on Yelp and Google and take a look at what our landlords are saying about our property managers, as well as tenants too. And then of course we have a private money lending division. Those folks are there to help service those clients that maybe, conventional financing potentially isn't an option, or it's not the best option. So we're going to talk more about conventional financing today with Reed, but our short-term investment options for those that are looking to do flips or maybe bridge financing or development loans, we can help you out with that. Our private money team has been around for over 10 years doing direct loans. And then we also have a mortgage fund. I mentioned that I'm a mortgage fund investor. We raise capital and then invest those funds into low risk, low loan to value, dispersed across dozens of states in the US in non-owner occupied residential properties. So we don't do commercial properties, we don't do risky high loans, and then we get paid on the interest on those loans, and we go ahead and return that back to our capital investors. Annually, we're looking at around 8 to 8.5% yield, which is pretty great, very low risk. It's a great way to park cash or maybe diversify if you have all your money parked in, S&P 500 or different indexes, ETFs. So, anywho, that's what we do at Marshall Reddick. Now, we are across multiple states, as I mentioned. We pick these with a great degree of care. Our markets we don't just happen to stumble across them. We picked Austin and New Braunfels and Clarksville, Nashville, Houston, Cape Coral with the utmost care, making sure that these markets are great for our investors, not just today, but 5, 10, 15 years into the future. We look at a variety of factors, which we'll jump into in just a little bit. Of course, we've got our home office here in Newport Beach, right here in Orange County, with agents that can help you out, but we've got those agents and property managers across those different states as well. I take a lot of pride in this picture, particularly. I think it's the slide that makes me the happiest, because we see a lot of happy faces, and these are the folks that help our clients day to day. I can say with a lot of truth that I learn something new every day talking to these people. I bet you probably could say the same thing. Every individual here works really hard to maximize the returns for our clients, and they put a lot of time, energy, and effort into that. We have property managers, marketing experts, software engineers, accountants, in-house analysts for our mortgage team, and just the leasing agents and advisors. They all kind of make this operate and work for you. So these are all these different photos spread across our various markets. And I mentioned that we choose our markets with care, but how do we actually do that? How do we choose where to invest? Well, we look at these 7 factors. First is the job market. We got to make sure that unemployment is relatively low, but we also want to make sure that businesses are moving into those economies, those cities, and those states, and are being attracted by oftentimes state governments that are a little bit more business friendly than other states might not be. I'm sitting here in California, and we do have quite a few industries kind of fleeing towards Texas and Florida and other markets like that for various opportunities. We also want to see that the vacancy rate for rentals is pretty low. So there's a lot of demand for rentals, and we measure that in each of those markets. Economic diversity, of course, is extremely important. For those of you that are old enough, maybe remember Detroit and what happened in the 70s when manufacturing got outsourced outside of the country. And that city was almost entirely dependent upon one economic industry, the auto manufacturing business. And when that went away, so did all the jobs, and so did all the tertiary employment. So a huge amount of unemployment spiked, and obviously it took a long time for us to really recover from that, and we're probably still in the throes of recovery. So we look at markets that have diverse employment, meaning multiple industries, from tech to healthcare to government to education, and so on and so forth, manufacturing, of course. Housing affordability is our 4th metric. I think I would put a lot of emphasis on this. I live in California, where housing affordability is at an all-time low. And it's hard for me to tell folks, yeah, California real estate's always going to be in demand and the prices are always going to go up, when housing affordability is so difficult for many to achieve here. So we look at markets in Texas and Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky, where there is an opportunity and a lot of runway for growth, where the median home sales price is under the national median home sales price, or right around there. And that means you've got a lot of room for those prices to go up as those places continue to grow in population and in demand. And if you're in California, you probably know that we're the least landlord-friendly states in the nation, maybe in competition with New York and Illinois potentially. But the laws here are many and difficult to navigate. We have AB 1482 and RSO and JCO and Measure H in Pasadena. All these different places have their own unique laws that we have to navigate. And frankly, I think investing in places that are a little bit more friendly to landlords and measure evictions in weeks instead of months is really important for long-term return investment. And of course, we want to be in places where there's strong education, because that's a continued metric for white-collar jobs in the future, and folks to have high-paying jobs that are going to increase your rent and, of course, increase demand in the future for resale. And we do have property management in each of the markets that we're operating in, but you want to make sure you have a market that you're selecting that has multiple property managers to select from. So just in case you get burned by one, there's someone else to choose from. I've talked to people that invest in, Topeka, Kansas, where they get burned by a property manager and there's nowhere else to turn to. So that's why you want to choose maybe a slightly larger metro area. A couple 100,000 people is a good idea. I mentioned our property management team. I'm proud to present this because it shows we're very competitive with our fees, and we're very transparent with our fees, which is most important. You can jump on our website and look at all of the various fees that we charge for property management and see that we're going to be right in line with our competitors. But more importantly, the service that we provide is top notch. And with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Reed. He's going to discuss a bit more about why we're here today, to learn about this really attractive financing, how it works, the ins and outs of it, and I'm excited to sit back and learn a lot from Reed.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Chris made some excellent points tonight. Super happy to be here with you guys. Thanks for being on the call, and extremely excited to be able to talk about interest rates that haven't really been around since 2017. It's just incredible. We have some amazing builder partners throughout Marshall Reddick, which are behind a lot of this, and then Marshall Reddick themselves, who also does direct trades with us. We're going to go into the ins and outs of that, and I really want to start here in just a minute and just kind of tell you guys about how loan pricing works, and I'm going to segue us into how we're getting the special financing that we're attaching to specific properties throughout the Marshall Reddick markets. A little bit about me, been doing this for almost 20 years now. I started when I was 19, working with Marshall Reddick. I used to help set up all of the events. We used to do about 18 seminars a month throughout Southern California. And I started, going to the events and in the logistics department, helping set everything up, learning about real estate, got a real estate license when I was just turning 19. And then I started working for one of the lenders within about 6 months of working at Marshall Reddick. And before you know it, I was learning loan programs and going up on stage and talking about them at all the different club meetings, what they used to be called, and just representing financing, and just learned a lot about it over the years. Love what I do. I love the power of leverage. We're one of the only nations in the entire world where you can still get financing to buy real estate. Many countries require you to buy all cash. So I just think that the power of leverage, when you use good leverage, there's nothing else like it from a financial standpoint. So love what I do. I'm also a real estate investor. I own properties throughout Austin, San Antonio, here in Orange County. And I've probably worked with several thousand investors now, and funded their loans here over the years throughout Marshall Reddick. We are licensed at my company in all 50 states, and then me and my personal branch in San Clemente, California. We're licensed in about 20 states now. So we do all those loans inside of my branch with my own team. We're the largest privately held bank in the nation that does conventional mortgages, but I like to call myself a company within a company. So everybody at my branch works for me, and we have complete control of the loan process from start to finish. So what I'm going to be covering tonight: what is a rate buy down? Current conventional guidelines. So what are the max credits that a seller can provide? If I'm getting a conventional mortgage, which conventional mortgage is lowest interest rates with the most favorable down payment options for buying either a primary residence or an investment property. So I'm going to be covering what's the max credits you can receive when you're getting those credits and you're buying a property as an investment, how much credit can the buyer receive towards buying down the interest rate or covering closing costs, or a combination of both? What is a forward commitment? We're going to go over some new construction inventory, and then we're going to cover buyer paid closing costs. So what types of costs will be charged to you if you purchase a property and you have special financing attached? So what is a rate buy down and how do loan points work? So let's say it's a $500,000 purchase and you're putting 30% down. You're going to have a $350,000 loan amount in this example. One loan point is equal to paying 1% of your loan amount. And that is being used as a discount cost to get a rate that is below the market rate. Now, if you went to bankofamerica.com or Wells Fargo mortgage rates today and you see their interest rates, when you look in the fine print, you'll see that this interest rate is being offered with a 780 FICO score and one loan discount point, or 0.75 of 1%, right? So the rates out there, by and large, are being advertised with loan discount points, really just so we can they can advertise a better interest rate than what the actual market rate is. The actual market rate today for a primary home loan is about 7% without any loan discount points. If you were to pay a point, then you could get that rate a bit lower. Now there's a guideline in conventional lending that says that you can only pay a certain amount of points. You really can't pay more than 4% of your loan amount on a real estate transaction for it to be a qualified mortgage. So you have this thing here where you as a buyer can only pay so many points, and then the seller can only credit so much closing costs. So, okay, now going into number 3 here, paying one loan point is equal to paying 1% of your loan amount. This is known as a discount point. And again, 1% would be, in this example of a 500K purchase, would be $3,500 that you'd be paying. Now, what is the max a seller can contribute towards buying your rate down? It's going to be 2% of the sales price. Okay, so 2% of the sales price is not 2% of the loan amount. Remember, 2% of the sales price. So $500,000 price, 2% is going to be $10,000. So we know that that's the max that you can get on a $500,000 purchase price that you can get to help buy your interest rate down. The next slide I'm going to show you is an actual rate sheet. So I've highlighted here a 6.5 interest rate. When we go over, the first line is principal and interest. So the payment would be $22.12, and then closing costs. This is in a dollar format. And then discount or rebate, that's loan discount points. So we know 2.924 points is going to get us down to a 6.5 rate. That comes out to $10,234. So, okay, we know $10,000, if we were to use that money to buy down the interest rate, the best we can get here is going to be a 6.5% interest rate. Now you notice as you go much lower in rate, the cost goes up dramatically. That's because there's something called a benchmark mortgage rate. And that's going to be an interest rate, or rather a mortgage-backed security that's tied to the most heavily traded mortgage loan in the back-end market, meaning there's the most amount of those loans being done. There's more loans right now being done between 6.5% and 7%. Okay, so that's why the cost to get down to those rates is still achievable. When you go down to a 6% mortgage rate, that's trading on the 6% coupon. That's anything from 6 to 6.5. The cost is going to go up a lot more because there's much less loans being done within that range. When you go down to the 5.5 coupon, which is a 5.5 rate to 6, there's almost no loans being done. You can see how the cost goes up dramatically. And when you go into like the lower 5s or even the 4s, that cost goes up a ton because there's really no trading volume in the secondary market. There's no demand for those types of mortgage rates, unless you're doing certain financing where a builder maybe is buying a bulk of money and then we're selling that money below market and they're the one paying those points. Okay, so that's how interest rates work. This is how loan points work. If we go up here to a 7.5 rate that I have highlighted here on the bottom, you can see that that's 0.765 loan discount points. So for an investment rate today, close to paying no points, you're going to be about a 7.5. And again, if you were to get a 2% sales price credit, you could maybe get down to a 6.5. You could pay a few points on top of that out of pocket and maybe get to a 5.99, but anything below that, the cost is going to be too high. You wouldn't be allowed to pay those fees. You would not qualify for that max qualified mortgage guideline that I just went over, nor could the seller help you anymore, right? If they helped you get to 6.5 and you decide to buy it down to 5.99, well, that's about the end of it. You can't really go any lower. So what do we do when a seller or a builder is willing to give more than the 2% of sales price credit? Okay, so what we do is we can do a forward commitment. Now, we do these commitments with Marshall Reddick because they're an institution, and we do them with builders. We have 210 Communities, who's a Marshall Reddick builder. They're their own builder, right? So they're their own separate company, but they're one of the builders that Marshall Reddick is their sales agent, and we sell a lot of their properties to our investors. We really believe in their product. Now, 210 Communities is one of my builders that does their own commitments. Marshall Reddick also does commitments, and then they allow other builders in certain parts of the nation essentially to hop onto their commitment and be able to get below market rates. Now, how do we get these below market rates? When you're doing a forward commitment, let's use a builder, for example. The builder is buying a rate sheet from us. That's a separate transaction, okay? We're then taking essentially their money that we're the ones lending out, and we're now doing a separate transaction with the consumer. Those are two separate transactions. The transaction between us and the consumer, that 2% guideline is going to apply. The transaction, though, between the builder and our company, that's a company-to-company transaction. They can pay as many points as they want, okay? They can buy a rate down to 4.25%. So the cost today to get a 4.25% for a builder is going to be very high. It's around 9 loan discount points, okay? So they can buy a rate on a rate sheet, and they can buy it in bulk. They might go, Reed, we're going to give you $5 million worth of loans in the next 6 months. And they're going to buy the rate sheet from that day. And they're going to go, we can afford to do this interest rate. I then take that money, and now I can market it on their properties. You then do your loan application with me, and I slot that loan when it comes in into their, call it $5 million bundle, right? And as those loans come in over time, they're allocated into this bundle. And when the last loan is funded, the trade is done, and we can go open up another trade. Okay, so this allows us to be able to sell interest rates that are below market. Now there's definitely a cost though for the builder to do this, and this is how we're doing it, you guys. It's just an awesome product that we have. The way this normally works is you'd have to commit to about 50 million at a time, but my company has their own securities. You see, when these loans are done, all these different conventional loans, they're just pulled together into these big bundles of loans, and they're sold in the secondary market as securities. Who's buying them? Hedge funds, large banks are buying them. Foreign institutions, foreign central banks are buying this type of debt. Why? It might pay 5 or 6 or 7%, and it's backed by real estate. Okay, and it's been underwritten with conventional guidelines based on borrowers' credit scores and down payments and based on their income, right? Their debt to income, their ability to repay. So it's a pretty safe asset, and it pays more than a T-bond. Okay, so that's how banking really works. And what we've been able to do at my company is been able to do smaller trades. Okay, if we have a builder that says, hey, we just want to sell these 4 properties or these 5, or we want to do a promotion this month and we want to sell our properties a little bit faster, and we're willing to attach a special interest rate, we can go, sure, you want to lock in 2 or 3 million for that? You don't have to lock in 50 million. So this is something that we do with our builders because of the trust we've built over years and years of doing business with them, years and years of Marshall Reddick doing business with them. And these are trades that we do with Marshall Reddick as well, because of the years of experience that we've had with them, because of the partnership between CMG and Marshall Reddick Real Estate. So I'm excited about it because as a fellow investor, I mean, we're able to, like I said, attach this a lot of times to properties that don't really need this type of financing. These are beautiful homes that are built, like for these duplexes we have in Texas, these are basically attached single family homes that are built with amazing materials, They're built with 3 and 4 bed, 2 and 3 bath on each side. They have an attached 2-car garage on each side. They have separated backyards. These attract long-term tenants. These are in great locations. They're not thrown together like certain builders I can think of, some of the biggest ones that just toss together properties now as cheap as possible. These are not like that. And these properties really do sell on their own, but certain builders that we work with, they're going, you know, we want to be able to sell these a little bit faster because we're not really in the business of holding on to real estate, right? We're in the business of selling our properties as fast as possible. And the high interest rate environment has not stopped sales, it's just slowed them down. And so this is a way they can sell their properties a bit faster, and they can cater to our investors, where our investors buy their product. And then over time, those investors come back and buy more of their product because it's great product, right? So it's not just to sell them faster, it's a combination of that and providing true value for the investor, for the Marshall Reddick investor. So you guys will notice we have some of these properties on the website, and we're gonna cover specifically today which properties, just 4 of the examples. But Chris and myself will be able to point you guys in the right direction on other opportunities that have this financing. And they're all over the Marshall Reddick website. We have about 7 different communities right now that we have this financing spread throughout 3 different states. So I'm gonna pass back over to Chris here to give some of his insight on really why new construction. And I'm gonna throw in a couple tidbits about my own opinions here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Reed. I think I mentioned earlier, I like to learn and absorb and sponge information from other folks on my team. And I learned a lot just now. I'm sure those of you that are on the webinar, thank you for that really awesome explanation of the forward commitment, how it all operates. But when it comes to new construction, I think there's just a tremendous amount of value that it brings to our investor clients in particular. First of all, just the maintenance on them is going to be so much lower in compared to a traditional resale property that's 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line. You know, a lot of those big capital expenditure items, right, that really kills your pocketbook, kills your return on investment, your cash flow, like a new roof, plumbing, electrical, appliances, windows, all of that stuff usually matriculates down on when you buy a property, it's brand new construction. It might take 15, 20 years before it hits you. Well, the average home ownership for an investor, it's around 12, 15 years. The investors that I talk to, most of them are trading and doing 1031s about 10 to 15 years after ownership, when they've gotten a lot of the tax benefits, some cash flow as rent's gone up, and they've had that benefit of great appreciation because they've invested in those good markets that we're located in. And they're not experiencing those big out-of-pocket items like a roof replacement because they bought new construction 10, 15 years ago. That's not something that they had to pay for. That might be the next buyer or the buyer after that. We also, a lot of the builders that we work with, specifically 210, have great warranties. Now, a resale property, you buy an older home and the HVAC goes out 3 weeks after you close, well, that seller's in the wind. Not so with our relationships with our builders. We work with small to medium-sized builders, and we do that specifically because we can hold them accountable when it comes to the warranties. A home warranty with Lennar is not the same as a home warranty with a builder like 210. It's going to be much easier to get the folks that we know by name, we know their family members, out there to the site and get them to take care of what we know is a problem, potentially. I mean, there's always issues occasionally with any property, things happen. So we want to make sure that we have those relationships built so we can hold people accountable. And then when it comes to tenant demand, I think this is a 2-pronged thing. It can be tenant and also resale. Right now, we've got the largest generational cohort in US history, which is millennials. They're in prime household formation right now, and they want those 3-bed, 2-bath, new construction, beautiful properties. I'm a millennial, so I can say this with pride. We want the easy route. We don't want to put the work in and rehab a house like maybe our parents did. We just want something that's simple and easy that we can live in and enjoy our life, right? And I think new construction accomplishes that for a large majority of millennials that are seeking that type of property, whether that's for a tenant or for resale. Think about 5, 10 years down the line. And builders right now are offering a good amount of incentives because, you know, like Reed mentioned, they are experiencing a little bit more supply right now because the market is slowed down, because of a higher interest rate environment. They want to attract good quality buyers that can close on time and close effectively. And that happens to be a lot of investors that have deeper pockets. And so they want to offer those incentives to make the cash flow work for them. And the cash flow simply and oftentimes doesn't work when you have a 7% interest rate attached. But with 4.25, it certainly does. And we'll go over a few properties to give you that illustration in more depth. But I always tell clients to look, chase the supply and chase the person that has the most to lose. And, we have great relationships with builders, but the fact of the matter is they're not in the business of holding onto properties, as we mentioned. They want to get rid of and shed their inventory, and they don't want to drop their prices because that has an effect on the comps. It has an effect on the next phase of development for them. So they're more in line with offering incentives like throwing in new blinds, refrigerators, sod, seller concessions, and lowering the interest rate. So that's why we're looking at new construction as kind of this time frame right now, probably until the end of the year, where this is going to make a lot of sense. As Reed might mention later, this interest rate environment isn't going to last forever, and I don't think developers are going to be offering these types of incentives. That's for sure.
That's a great point. So a little bit about just us here again, just why CMG. We're one of the largest banks in the nation, so we have all the big bank benefits. We service your loans. We have a great online presence. We have a great online portal that you can log into and make your mortgage payments, set up auto pay, all those different things. We have the lowest interest rates out there, and we're able to do these special commitments, but really just license everywhere, do every single type of loan out there that is conventional. So FHA, VA, jumbo. But another program that we have that I think is phenomenal is for any of you guys that don't do special financing, and you're just, you guys are getting a normal interest rate today, whether it's a primary residence or it's an investment property. We do have a rate rebound program, so we cover all your lender fees. We cover $1,000 of your title and escrow fee. We cover the cost of your appraisal. We also cover your notary fees. So that's for one refinance anytime in the next 5 years after you close. So definitely keep that in mind. That's an amazing program that's being upheld by my company. One other thing too, we have one owner. I just love that. Chris George, our owner. If you were to Google Chris George CMG, you would see he served in Washington for a long time, and just an amazing guy. He's the only owner of CMG. He's just an amazing leader, and he always stands by his word. So really do love our company. This is a little bit of more data about the rate rebound program that we offer. You guys get a flyer and you guys get a coupon after you close on your transaction. And for the properties like tonight that do have the special financing attached, this is really the type of loan I don't think that you need to touch it. I mean, if you get a 5.25 or a 4.75 or a 4.25, this is not a loan that you'll need to touch for a really long time. So you're kind of buying that hedge now. You're buying that cash flow now, as opposed to buying an interest rate and then hoping that the market's going to come down. Interest rates will come down with inflation over time. Interest rates will at some point be lower. But again, a 4.25 on an investment property or on a multi-unit investment property, the market would have to improve by somewhere around 900 basis points to 1,000 basis points to get that rate again. This is a huge movement. The federal fund rate will need to be, 1.25 to 1.5%, where right now it's trading at 5.25 to 5.5%. So this is huge moves that will need to happen for that ever to happen again. So again, I think this program will serve you well for a property that's not going to have the special financing attached. So if you guys want to get pre-approved to find out what your exact loan terms are for the special financing, you go to reedhazard.com. My production managers, Mike and Brian, will follow up right away to get all your documents. We'll get you guys pre-approved, and then we'll get you guys a copy of a generic pre-approval letter. And then we'll, depending on the property that you guys select, we'll get you guys a loan estimate for a few different options. 25% down is the minimum down payment for buying a 2 to 4 unit investment property. 20% down is the minimum for buying a 1 unit. And 5% down, guys, is the minimum now for buying a 2 to 4 unit primary residence. So this financing also covers primary residence. In November of last year, the government decided to allow as little as 5% down for 2, 3, and 4 unit properties. That guideline has always been 15% down for a duplex, so for 2 unit, 20% down for 3 and 4 unit for primary. So they did that though during a high rate environment. So we're getting these loans coming in, but I don't think you're seeing them as much as you would see them if we were in a lower rate environment. So I want you to think of this. When you buy a property like this nowadays, you buy a duplex, for example, that's built like 2 attached single family homes. It has an ability, in my opinion, to appreciate more similar to how a single family home would appreciate, especially when it's located in a market or an area of the market with good school district ratings, low crime rates, the path of growth, or already in that growth range. Okay, so when you go to resell this property in 10 or 15 years or 20 years and 1031 exchange it, Chris mentioned earlier what he likes about new construction is about that ability to sell a property that's still fairly new, okay, and sell it after you haven't really experienced a ton of the maintenance costs that you would on a much older property. Another benefit here is that when you go to sell it in the future, if you buy a multi-unit now, barring any changes, the government allows 5% down now. And so a lot of clients will buy to live in one side and rent out the other. That's called house hacking. That's kind of the term for it. And so I think on 3 unit and 4 unit as well, I think that there's going to be a larger resale pool of buyers in the future as time goes on, as these guidelines allow minimum down payment. So there was always a lot of demand that I noticed. I mean, I've been doing these same types of properties for probably 13 years throughout Marshall Reddick. And I remember some of the first developments that we did that were where they were duplexes that were built like attached single families, right? They had a 2-car attached garage on each side. They had separated backyards. They were really built to cater like a long-term tenant. Those properties from 2013, 14, 15 to now, they've appreciated so much, not just because the market, I think it's literally how they're built. So again, that 5% down minimum ability for a primary home buyer, I think that that's going to have a bigger buyer pool in the future when you do go to exchange some of these properties that you buy. So after you guys get pre-approved, again, we'll send out a generic approval letter and you guys will be ready to go. And we can provide loan estimates kind of case by case based on the property. So Chris is going to dig into the feature properties. And then I'm going to throw in a couple comments that I have about a couple of our properties where they just lowered the interest rates a ton.
Awesome. Yeah, this is the fun stuff where we get to dig into the nitty gritty and the numbers. I just want to kind of echo that sentiment about the recent changes in allowing primary residence home buyers on multifamily, 4 units, 2 to 4 units, having 5% down payment is such an impactful change, but it takes time for that change to matriculate through the market. Real estate is a liquid and it takes time for information to translate into the market. It's not going to be overnight where you're going to see that appreciation gain, but it will take a couple years, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years of the next market cycle, right, for that to make a massive impact. But that's a good thing because you're buying these properties while they're relatively underpriced, and as the buyer pool gets wind of their ability to put down 5% and house hack on a newer construction duplex that's 5, 10, 15 years old, it's going to make a big difference in long-term appreciation and mirror that single family home appreciation trend line that has been really such a boon for real estate investors over the last 30, 50, 100 years, and name your timeline in American real estate. And I think that's come in the way of small multifamily properties for certain. But anywho, I want to spend a little bit more time on a couple of featured properties that we have here and walk y'all through the calculator. First of all, this is a duplex, as you can see, really beautiful, immaculate property in a duplex community with 210 builders. I'm one of those folks that we have a great relationship with, have an awesome home warranty. They recently contacted us and said, you guys have been doing a great job selling our properties. You sold a few last month. We want to sell double that this month. And we're nearing the end of the year. I think they're getting a little nervous with fall coming up or something, but they really want us to get moving and selling some of these duplexes. And they're offering 4.25% interest rate, which is kind of like rewinding the clock to 2018, 2019, where interest rates were around there.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive stuff. So just in respect to this particular duplex, this one's located in Buda, which is about 15, 20 minutes outside of Austin. I love that community. It's a little bedroom community with a cute little downtown. A lot of the kind of tech folks that moved from the Bay, California into into Austin are now looking to kind of really put down roots and do like a house hack or move to a place like Buda and own property over here. And I think this is where we're going to see a pathway of progress and a lot of future growth for home price appreciation and, of course, rent demands with it just being 15 minutes outside of the metro of Austin. It's a 4-bed on each side, 4-bed, 3-bath, pretty monster units. Of each unit is 1,800 square feet. Good lot size as well, which each yard is separated with a fence for privacy. And what I really like, if you guys are looking at multifamily property, make sure, this is a silly thing, but make sure your entryway doors are not right smack dab next to each other and your tenants are running into each other every single morning when they leave their house or they're coming home, they're tired of work and they're running into their neighbor. It gets frustrating and annoying. What you see is the entryways are on the tail end of the property there, and you really have just full privacy and it looks like a single family home. It lives like a single family home and it feels like one. But let's jump into the calculations because that's kind of ultimately what matters for you guys as investors. These are listed for $650. I'm going to just go from top to bottom here and make a couple notes. Now we have down payment at 30%. You can do a little lower. You can go to 25% on 2 units, but the math makes a little bit more sense from the points that you pay out of pocket at 30%. And obviously that impacts your cash flow in a positive way. There's no real initial repair cost because these things are totally ready and rocking and rolling for tenants to walk in there and rent them, and they're super showable, and we're showing them right now. And a couple of which we leased out successfully at the market rents that we're looking at right now. So closing costs are built in here based on some of the points and the typical closing costs that you'd experience in that market. We're holding back there. The gross rents here are going to be around $2,250 a side, which is $4,500. One thing I want to say about multifamily investing compared to single family, if your rents go up a couple of percent, when you own a single family, you only get to affect that on one unit. When you can raise rents $200 a door, well, now you have a $400 increase in revenue. You kind of get a double win there. So one thing to look at if you're considering the options between single family and duplex.
I mean, if I can just mention on these
Sure.
too. I mean, these are some of the prettiest duplexes that I've ever seen. I mean, this is an amazing location, and these have been selling fine at 5.25. So the builder normally does. This is a 210 community property. The builder normally does 5.25 on these, and we've been selling them fine, and they have a ton of value at 5.25. They just, for this month, we're like, you know what? It's July. We want to sell these a little faster. We're excited to see how well they've been selling, and let's see if we can double sales this month. And they literally are allowing us through the end of the month to allow a 4.25 interest rate on these. You guys, when we do an appraisal, it's a conventional loan. It has to go through a third-party management company when we order that appraisal. They then select the appraiser. Okay, this is a Fannie Mae government-backed security, right? That we're doing this. That's what type of loan it is. And so that independent appraiser goes out there and they get comps from other areas as well. And they have to make sure that the value's there. These have had no problem appraising whatsoever. Again, the reason the financing is getting attached is also, let's say that they were okay going, you know what, we'll drop the price 25 grand. The cash flow doesn't, when you're buying as an investment property, 25, 50 grand, 100 grand is not, you're not going to see as big of a difference in the cash flow as you see in dropping an interest rate, for example, 1% or 1.5%. So in this situation, they are dropping the interest rate short term for us to 4.25. And it's just the cash flow. This is actually turned into, it's not only a high appreciating property that I would call an A-class property guarantee. I think you're going to get solid appreciation long term on this property, but you wouldn't just call it an appreciation play anymore. It's actually become a cash flow play. With a 4.25 rate, it's just cash flowing $732 a month. So I think these are hot. I literally just talked to my wife about potentially selling a single family that I have up in the Dominion in San Antonio. It's turned into a luxury property over time. It's probably worth around 850. And we're even considering selling. I owe about 376 on it. I have a 3 1/8 mortgage rate, so I don't want to get rid of it. But the fact that they just dropped us to 425, I am heavily considering right now. I actually am in the middle of turning a tenant, by the way. So I am personally considering selling that property and 1031ing into 2 or 3 of these, because of the fact that I love these and the financing rate is just so good. So I do want to throw that in here. I think these are going to sell even faster now than they have been because of this rate. So.
Yeah, you mentioned something really interesting, which is the relative impact of a price drop, which is equal to what the rate buy down is and how that would affect cash flow versus actually just lowering the interest rate. Now, I actually did the math on this. Let's just say that the rate buy down cost is $40,000 for them to buy down the rate to 4 1/4. It's roughly accurate, I would say.
Yeah, 35.
Yeah, 35,000. So I dropped the price down by $35,000 and kept the rate at what would be a kind of a conventional rate of 6.75%. That's with a concession. And our monthly income would go from about $700 to $100. So
it's that big.
It's that big of a difference. It's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars of difference by just having a lower rate with that price. And once again, we've been selling these properties, they are appraising at or higher than value, which is essential. I mean, you obviously want to protect your interest and not overpay, and that's a major component to this. So kind of going back to our expenses here and our income, we've got the taxes, the insurance, the management fees, the HOA fee, utilities and landscaping all accounted for you guys. One thing to note is the HOA fee. There is a small HOA fee because folks are attracted to amenities. We want to offer people really cool amenities like a little public gym area, or I think they're thinking about, don't hold my feet to the fire on this, like a pickleball court out there. There's a lot of really cool little things that they're thinking of doing, walking trails, all that good stuff. And you want there to be someone holding the owners accountable and the tenants accountable for the appearance and aesthetic of the property. Why? Well, that's the type of tenant you're going to attract, and that also is going to impact your resale. So that fee is really worth its weight in gold in the future. So if we take it all in, we plug in all of our expenses, we're looking at a monthly income of $732. Now, we also look and take into account variable expenses of maintenance and vacancy and leasing fees. Eventually, you're going to have to find a tenant, right? They charge of that as 50% of 1 month's rent. That's going to happen every so often. Typically, on a property like this, your tenants are going to stay in there 2, 3, 4, 5 years even, because it's large enough for them to grow into, right? When you're renting out a 2-bedroom condo or a 1-bedroom or a studio, the turnover is so much higher. I mean, they're turning in and doing unit turns every year on those. But with an 1,800 square foot, 4-bed, 3-bath, it's not a big deal if you have another baby. You're not looking for another property to live in. So the unit turns are far and fewer between, which means less maintenance and less vacancy overall. But still, you want to account for that. And if you do account for all those factors and you say, hey, every month I want to throw 5% of my rental income and keep it in my accounts, and 8%, 1 month's worth of vacancy, which would be pretty high, every single month, keep it into an account, and a leasing fee every 18 months, and keep that, you're still cash flowing, which is, like I said, we're kind of rewinding to 2018, 2019 with that interest rate, and I think that's kind of the cash flow projections that we would have looked at, 5 years ago. So we also want to take into consideration your guys' total profit. On a 15-year hold period, you can adjust that. I'm an advisor here with Marshall Reddick. I can walk you through our website and how to change your holding times on our calculator. It's super dynamic, and the years that you hold it can be differentiated between 5, 10, 20 years. But like I mentioned, the average hold time for investors is about 15 years. The ROI on this thing is about 23% every year, which is pretty fantastic. That takes into consideration the 3 major ways to make money in real estate, which is your cash flow, which we're getting. It's taking into consideration your appreciation and the tenant's principal pay down, divided by obviously the money that you put into the deal. Okay. One thing that is not included in the calculator that's that's very important for people to understand is rent price appreciation, increasing rents. Now, if you've ever rented or you own a rental property, you probably know rents go up over time. If you look at a historical pattern, they go up right around inflation plus about 0.5%.
Yeah, like 3%.
Yeah, it's about 3%
Give or
over
take.
the last 30 years. That's give or take, depending on the market, maybe 3.5%, 4%. But point being, if we just look at this deal without taking into any consideration of rent price increases over the next 15 years, and it still makes sense, that's how you know it's a good deal, because you're not even accounting for that.
And that isn't built in here. There's
not built
no
in
rent
here at all.
increase. And I don't think rents are going up either way for a little while.
For maybe a couple years.
Yeah, and but 2, 3, 4, but they'll start to trickle up again. And just like you said, they'll make their way back to that national average of around 3%. And I mean, that will only add to your return here. It's just
And that's something that isn't taken into account because we're a more conservative firm. But if you want to look at it with that taken into account, you certainly can, and build out your own pro forma, and that return is going to be quite a bit higher. Let's go on to another property here. I do want to kind of backtrack and say that this particular builder, 210, does have a variety of communities in really great markets like New Braunfels and San Antonio, duplexes and single family homes. So if maybe that price point or that particular area isn't striking your fancy, get in touch with me or Reed, and we can chat more about the various communities.
And they're doing the 4.25 on all the communities through July. All of them, San Antonio, the New Braunfels ones, even on their single families. So 4.25.
Pretty bonkers. And I do want to talk about this one. This is a 4-unit, really cool. It's very rare for us to see 4-unit new construction properties in San Antonio. This is West San Antonio, and it's in a really nice area with a lot of commercial development. And it's also cash flowing, which is great. Now you're going to see great demand from tenants here as well. San Antonio is known as Military Town USA with multiple military bases. I love San Antonio. It's a super stable market. If you look at the appreciation trend lines, I always gravitate towards what happened in 2008, what happened in 2009, what happened in 2010. Nothing. San Antonio stayed steady for years and maybe dropped a couple of percentage points. If you're located in California, or Florida, or Arizona, Nevada, you got smacked in the face when the market crashed in 2009. So you were looking at maybe negative 30% depreciation for single family homes. San Antonio tracks at negative 2% in 2009, which is amazing. That's why I'm closing on an investment property in San Antonio, closing next week. So that's a major component of why I would advise clients to look at San Antonio and Central Texas specifically. Moving along, we also operate in Carlson, Tennessee, which just like Buda is adjacent to a major metropolitan area of Nashville, about 40 minutes away. These are Class A properties. These are almost bordering luxury homes. The average median single family home price in Clarksville is around like $260,000. These are a little bit higher priced because they're in amazing school systems, really nice developed communities, and we think that the builder is top notch. We've been working with Bill Mace for a while now, and we've had nothing but good experiences with finding tenants and dealing with anything that may arise during construction times. I'm closing on a property right now with Reed. We're 3 weeks ahead of schedule, 2 weeks ahead of schedule from when the project is supposed to be completed. That almost never happens with developers and builders. It's very rare, so they're kind of people of their word there. So these also are cash flowing extremely well at $232 a door. And if you guys are more of that luxury A-class, really want to be in a very stable market, Clarksville's the way to go. It's also a military town with Fort Campbell right there. I really would think highly of.
Lots of jobs, yeah, lots of different economic diversity also on top of having that military base right there. It's just excellent. These have a 5.25% interest rate attached to them.
Of course, the last property that we're going to take a look at here is a great duplex that cash flows. It's kind of our cash flow monster duplex down there in Lehigh Acres, which is right in the Cape, right next to Cape Coral. Great builder. These guys construct their properties to withstand the elements down there. So Obviously, I think a elephant in the room with any investor thinking about Florida is what about hurricanes? These guys know how to build them and build everything hurricane resistant as much as you possibly can, and they go above and beyond everything from the grading of the property to the windows, to the roofing material, everything you can think of. So we've been renting these out really successfully over the last 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and have been getting even above and beyond the rental rates anticipating. So a great cash flowing asset. These have these are 5 1/4 as well.
Yeah, these have a 5 1/4, and a little something about this builder. This particular builder holds on to a lot of their properties. They own hundreds of their own properties. They only sell part of their inventory to free up enough cash to continue doing new construction builds and new developments. And they like don't like letting go of their properties. Like that's how they build these. These are these 210 community. I mean, these are really great builders. Again, you guys, that we have set up where we're getting this type of financing on them. I think it is literally only due to the market that we're in. And yeah, this particular builder builds in really the same kind of similar way. 3-bedroom, 2-bath minimum on each side. An attached garage on each side. A nice backyard space. These are selling like hotcakes. We do very well with these. These have a 5 1/4 interest rate attached, and again, 25% down minimum. With that 4 1/4 rate now that we have on the 210 community properties, I think 25% down really will actually push your return on investment up also. For anybody trying to leverage a little bit more and still get good cash flow, I think 25 down is really all you need to put. 30% definitely will give you better cash flow. It's a little more conservative. So both are great options. But on these as well, you could do 25% down, 30% down, and I think you're still going to get great cash flow. Yeah, and these have a 5 1/4. You actually can buy the rate down further too if you want to a 4.75, but the cost to do that's a lot. So usually a buyer just takes the 5 1/4. That's another thing that I mentioned. You guys, you can actually buy down anything that has a 5 1/4. You can buy it down more. You actually could buy the 4 1/4 down to a 3.99 if you wanted to on the other duplexes and on the fourplex that we just showed you. I think it's about a 1.5 point cost more, and you could buy that down to 3.99. So
that's pretty wild.
It is.
Thanks for the additional information. Rita, I'll let you talk about some of those buyer paid points costs.
Absolutely. And so, what does the buyer pay? The buyer pays what's called the loan level price adjustment. So the builder or Marshall Reddick, when it's a trade that Marshall Reddick's doing, that they're latching on to and allowing a builder to use their trade. So that's how we do these with Marshall Reddick, and we do these with the builder. They pay the back end or the raw cost of the money. The buyer pays the loan level price adjustments based on their credit score, based on their down payment, and based on the purpose. Are they buying it as an investment or buying it as a primary residence? On average, a buyer is paying somewhere between 1 to 3 loan discount points, depending on their credit score. And so what our builders have done is, depending on the builder also, they may give you some additional credit to cover those points costs. So I know 210 Communities that's offering the 4 1/4. You need to pay your own points for that option, which is a phenomenal deal. And I think it's the best deal because that's really a one and done rate. You don't need to refi that. Or a 4.75%, they will cover your loan discount points. Unless your credit's really low, they may not be able to. So those are kind of our options. And then on the 5 1/4 properties, you're going to pay somewhere between 1 and 3 loan discount points. I showed you guys on that rate sheet a few minutes ago when I was talking that the cost to get a 5 1/4 on a duplex investment property is over 8 loan discount points right now. So again, there is tremendous value in any of these options if all you are paying is your loan level price adjustments, right? Somewhere between 1 and 3 points. But we have an option for you where there'll be no points at all, depending on the property. So what we do, so you can verify your exact costs, you'll get pre-approved through me and my team by going to that readhazard.com, click on the Apply Now tab. We'll get all your documents, get you pre-approved. Then we'll get you a loan estimate based on the property that you want to buy, based on your down payment requirement. You'll have all your numbers to look at, and then you guys can contract.
Awesome. Well, I just looked down and saw the time is 6:02. So thanks, guys, for staying tight with us. We just got a couple more slides to roll through here, and we'll get you out of here, and hopefully, armed with some information that'll help you with your next step with your investment journey. But I mentioned a couple of different factors when looking at investment properties, one of which is the property class. I mentioned that Tennessee is in like a luxury or A class. Well, how the heck is that determined? We look at every metropolitan area has a median single family home price. We just look at the average or median single family home price in the metro area and say, well, 100% of that median single family home price is right around a B or A class. Well, what's an A or B class, right? Well, an A class is going to be a community that is more focused on appreciation. I want you to think about a property that is right at the median single family home price in your community. If you're in Orange County, that's probably around $1.1 million right now. That's going to get you a nice 3-bedroom, 2-bath home and a nice school system, probably fairly low crime. It's not going to be the best community. It's definitely not going to be the worst, right? Well, as we taper down into lower price segmentations, if we look at a C class, which is less than 70% of the median single family home price, now think about what a $600,000 or $700,000 property is going to get you. A D class is 50% or less of the median single family home price. Think about what a $400,000 or $500,000 property, single family home, comparatively would get you. It's going to be in a rough area, high crime. And those property classes tend to be the type of tenant that you're going to attract over time. I think A class stands for appreciation, B is a bit of both, C is more cash flow, and D, I think just don't do it unless you're D stands for don't. You're going to be focused on Section 8 and public housing, then go for D. But be wary when you're looking at property prices that are half the price of the normal median home sales price, and you're going, wow, this is a great deal. It likely isn't. It's not going to have any appreciation. It's going to be full of headaches. However, if you really want to dive deep into what this all means, how we determine this, I'm going to send you a free property rating ebook. It goes into way more detail. We can jump on the phone and discuss it. Feel free to reach out to me. And I think I mentioned this. Go online and check out our reviews. We have been in business since 1979, and we've accumulated hundreds and hundreds of reviews across our multiple markets for all of our different services. We also have tons of educational videos and articles and guides, everything from how to do a 1031 exchange and house hack and what's better, multifamily or single family. So feel free to dive deep. And if you'd ever like a tutorial of the website, give me a holler. I'd be happy to walk you through it. And of course, we want to just spend a little time acknowledging Reed's really amazing informational and educational tutorial here of the forward commitment. Reach out to him for any pre-approval, and I also got my contact information. I highlighted here as Reed's finicking with the PowerPoint.
I don't know what happened here, this thing.
That's okay, but after this webinar, you guys are going to get a poll, and we'd love it if you guys could just take a couple minutes, leave some questions or comments about what you thought of this. And if you want to jump on a free consultation with me to just determine what's the next step, where do you go from here? I'm here for you. I've done it many, many times alongside Reed to get our clients to purchase either that first investment property or do a complicated 1031 from LA to Texas, whatever it is, we got your back. So thanks again for joining, and yeah, we're here for you guys whenever you need us.
Thank you, guys. Been a lot of fun. Thank you, Chris. Awesome job.